Good morning, everyone. I'm Shafquat Towheed. I'm currently Director of Research in the School of Arts and Humanities, and I'm the Director of our research centre, OpenARC. A very warm welcome to you all for coming in person today to attend our first ever OpenARC Festival of the Arts and Humanities. And this is designed very much as a festival, and I'll tell you more about it in a second. OpenARC's mission is to act as a hub and to promote the values of arts and humanities research for the 21st century. Only by researching the world through the arts and humanities can we fully understand what it means to be human and to use that knowledge of our past and present to inform a better future. Through our world-leading research and impact, OpenARC is committed to creating, defending, and sustaining an informed and culturally literate society in a world where there are increasing inequalities of access to the positive influence of the arts and humanities. Given the challenges facing us in all directions in an increasingly hostile environment, with many governments cutting arts funding and deprioritizing the humanities in the curriculum, the need for us to celebrate the best research in the arts and humanities has never been more acute, hence the purpose of today. What is the point of research in the arts and humanities today? How does it benefit us? What good does it do? Today's festival aims to answer those questions of relevance by showing how research in our school is varied, inclusive, open, resourceful, impactful, good value for money, and critically relevant in the 21st century. So what has OpenARC been doing? During the course of this academic year, OpenARC offered 2 rounds of funding in September and January to support research groups and networks, as well as individual research projects. OpenARC directly funds most of the 17 research groups housed in the school, and you'll find stalls for most of these groups here at the festival today. And I'm going to do a little bingo call out for the stalls later on, so you know where to go. Our research groups are vibrant, they are energetic, they are active, and OpenARC provides the support for them to flourish and succeed. All of this contributes towards generating an inclusive research environment, as well as building towards our REF 2029 submission. But OpenARC doesn't just fund research groups, it also funds smaller scale, but equally important individual research activities, whether helping to get a monograph finished, funding a trip to an important archive, or supporting research dissemination at a conference. Let me give you an example. OpenARC funded a workshop to mark 400 years since the accession of King Charles I to the throne. The workshop led to a special number of the Historian magazine, featuring articles by history colleagues Chris Langley, Charlotte Brownhill, and Sarah Wolfson, which in turn reached some 13,000 individual and institutional subscribers. So OpenARC also supports colleagues developing external funding bids, demonstrated through the 3 funding workshops organised this year, and you'll be able to view some of the many news items posted on the OpenARC website on the slideshow in a minute. So that'll be running later. You'll be able to find out what we've been supporting and see some of the good news from colleagues. We have been celebrating public-facing research, engagement, and impact in the arts and humanities, and that's part of the objective of today's event. But it's not just about what OpenARC does. Today is a celebration of the good that arts and humanities research does in the wider world. Much of our research is open by design. That is to say, we often make our research data freely available to the public by inviting reuse and welcoming crowdsourcing and co-creation of new research. Researchers in the arts and humanities played an active role in the Open University's first ever Open Research Week, which took place from the 24th to the 28th of March. Showcased during the weeks were projects such as Pelagios, led by Elton Barker in Classical Studies, open access publications, such as the Open Arts Journal, led by Leon Wainwright in Art History, and practice-based research using the creative arts, such as the Tinnitus in the Arts project, led by Marie Thompson in Music, and expressive writing with people impacted by conflict, gender-based violence, and palliative care, led by Siobhan Campbell in English and Creative Writing. Many arts and humanities researchers are also active in broadcast co-productions, and you can find out more about this by visiting the Broadcast Partnership stall and watching the excellent short film on the OpenARC website. I'm standing here speaking to you today less than a week after the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day. And as many of you will know, D-Day was one of the most famous operations during the Second World War, the largest seaborne invasion in history. It's been immortalized in films, in books, and in TV series, but most of these stories have focused almost exclusively on the experience of men. The vital contribution of women to D-Day's success has thus largely been overlooked. Now, produced to accompany the BBC's recent series D-Day, The Unheard Tapes, which came out in 2024, The Unsung Heroines of D-Day is a short OU BBC Ideas animation that places the women of D-Day centre stage. In this film, which will be on the screen later today, you'll be able to see it, you'll hear those stories and discover the important roles that women played in the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe in June 1944. The OU's Dr. Francis Houghton, a lecturer in history, worked as the nominated academic on this film, and the film won the Webby Awards prize for Best Video and Film in Science and Education in 2025. Today's festival highlights the ways in which many of our researchers engage in the public humanities, building knowledge and understanding the world beyond academia. More broadcast co-productions are underway, so go and visit the stall for more information. There's another round, for example, of BBC Morning Live films, which are going into production, with researchers from our school tackling issues as varied as the origins of our obsession with true crime, the history of L-plates, the power of music, and the future of reading. Research in the arts and humanities can also generate impact. That is to say, the good that research does in the real world. This afternoon, you'll be hearing more about 5 impact case studies in development in our school, all supported and funded by the Open University's flagship Open Societal Challenges programme. Research that leads to impact makes a real difference in people's lives, and you can find out more about how our colleagues take their research into communities to transform the lived experience of people. The structure of the day today. We'll shortly be hearing from our PVC Research and Enterprise, Professor Kevin Shakesheff. He's going to give us a quick talk soon. And that's going to be followed by a presentation on podcasts by Matthew Holley from the School of Creative Industries. After these 2 talks, feel free to wander around, speak to the stallholders, engage with the objects, try out the musical bed, which is in the room next door in Medlar. Just to say 1 person at a time for the musical bed, and strictly no napping. No napping. I know it's very tempting, especially after lunch. The slideshow running in the background will provide you with information about the various research groups and their stall numbers. It will showcase a short video on the women of D-Day, and it's going to display news from the OpenARC website. Please pick up a lunch voucher. You have got a free lunch. The lunch vouchers are on the OpenARC table in the room next door, so it's the first table you'll encounter. Pick it up. You can also use it for coffee and refreshments. Use it at any time of the day. Please come back in time for the musical performance by James Dooley, which is going to be in the Medlar room at 1 p.m. And then this afternoon, join us for the afternoon showcase of impact case studies in development. We'll be joined by FAS Executive Dean, Professor Adrienne Scullion, and by our Associate Dean for Research, Rose Capdevila. Rose is going to be introducing the 5 impact case studies, 1 from each discipline in our school. We're also going to be doing some filming during the day, so apologies if there are cameras and microphones in the way, and I'm going to be going around recording people as well. So that's just to let you know what's going on. Okay, I think I can now hand over to Kevin.
Thank you, everyone, so much. That was a great intro, Shaf. Congratulations for everything that you're doing. I just want to reinforce the importance of the messages that Shaf just gave. I think arts and humanities plays an absolutely essential role across the whole of society. We are in a time where we need to defend, and I think your approach to defend is to go on the offensive and just show just how important what you're doing is. So congratulations for everything that you're doing. As people will know, I'll be leaving the university in 3 months. So I also just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you. Looking around the room, I've worked with so many of you in the 4 years that I've been here and had great response to everything. And it's been a huge team effort. So I really hope that we're creating an environment where you can achieve everything that you've set out to do. I wanted just to reinforce a couple of areas where I think Arts and Humanities has played such an important role for me and will continue into the future. I'm going to try and just show a couple of things on the screen. Where did I put these now? Yeah, you very kindly mentioned open societal challenges. This has turned into a huge community and team success. I remember for my interview, I sort of had cobbled this together, to be honest, as something that I could say at an interview. And when I got here, the natural enthusiasm for the Open University aligning research in part with major societal challenges was overwhelming, and you really took it on and made it much bigger than I ever thought it could be. I just wanted to encourage everyone to keep sort of engaging with this as a platform. The team have done a fantastic job. If you go online now, you can search the 250 or so challenges. I confidently predicted we wouldn't get above 30 at the start. So thank you for that engagement. They're doing a great job, I'm sure, with your teams as well, at highlighting stories, and so many of these have got arts and humanities at their core and a very collaborative approach. What I think is great about this has just been the ability to bring people together. So the platform continues to grow, and just to sell a couple of features to you, the OU clusters was an idea that we didn't have at the start, but basically, this is where people have spontaneously come together with their own challenges, and we've been able to cluster people together. And what I really like about this is rather than going out and saying, okay, we're going to set up an institute in this area, and we're going to cluster people from the top into those areas, this is very much the community coming together around subjects that matter to you. So in each one of these areas, there are cluster activities. So if you're interested in the justice system, for example, you can search and find the project. So each one of these triangles is a project that in some way involves the justice system. So if that's an area you want to get into, or you just want to find who's doing this work across our massive and diverse university, it gives you an opportunity to do that. The other aspect that I think is just so special about our university is the work that you do across all of the nations. And again, we can look across the challenges, click on different nations and see the work that's happening. No other university in the UK has got this power of touching lives across every nation of the UK. So lots of really good things to do there. We've done a lot of community engagement, and I'm very confident that this will continue long into the future as a special way in which the OU does research. I just also wanted to acknowledge, because Arts and Humanities plays such a key role in this, the work that you're doing on open research. Again, it's an area where the Open University is genuinely leading the way worldwide. And again, it was one of the things I noticed when I arrived. People are just so innovative around approaches to being open. So this is just a recent activity that I know a number of you have been involved with, which is taking our approach to open research, putting it onto Open Learn Create, and then opening it up to anybody in the world. Really us taking the lead and not just being good at open research ourselves, but encouraging the wider community to get involved. So again, thank you so much for what you're doing. I'm really looking forward to engaging with all of the stands, and I wish you all the very best for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for those kind words. Very inspirational, as always. I'm now going to invite Matthew Holley from the School of Creative Industries to come and give us a talk about podcasts. Matthew, over to you.
Good, thank you, Chef. Hi, I've got quite a lot to go through, so if I go a little bit too fast, do forgive me, but feel free to speak to me afterwards if there's anything that you might have missed. Okay, so podcasting isn't really new, is it? It needs no introduction these days. It's a popular form of audio entertainment and information exchange since the early 2000s. Music streaming services such as Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music host podcasts. Even the BBC calls half its radio programs podcasts. So, I've already screwed up. You know, our technical lead doesn't know how it works. How do I scroll down? Manual scrolling. Okay, I've got it. Right, okay. Sorry. Making a podcast itself is now within easy reach of almost anyone. Freely available software and cheap hardware enables all of us to access the tools to create content without worrying about the expense of traditional studios and production teams. Podcasting really has entered the mainstream. So where's the OU in all of this? I want today to concentrate on research teams using podcasts to promote their work, perhaps cross-promote with relevant OU courses, linking to OU websites. It's not my remit here to suggest the OU put course material up as podcasts, similar to the iTunes U experience, but I will come back to that. So if you search on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music, you don't see much in the way of a concentrated OU podcast presence. So Spotify doesn't bring up anything, but a series of financial podcasts. You can see them at the end, the blue square there. So I'll speak about those in a minute. When you look on YouTube, you find the OU's page. It's largely about advertising and recruitment, which is good. The inaugural lecture series is there, plus some specially made content, but that's about 5 years old now. So maybe that's a bit of a lost opportunity to promote ourselves. And then Apple Podcasts, the app, will show a number of results for the OU, but these date back to around about 2009 to 13, when Apple launched the iTunes U service, which was promoting university access to iTunes. And the OU launched a lot of short courses and various programs on that platform. Unfortunately, Apple wound that service down in 2019, but by that time, the OU was no longer regularly uploading new content anyway. There's a few new things up there, but nothing regular. KMI, who were responsible for all of this, did a useful graph which showed the number of downloads done during the period of 2009 to 13. It was 65 million downloads. So a lot of that success was due to Apple actively promoting the OU on its pages. The flip side of that, of course, is that we had to continue to provide content for it to do that. And of course, back then, we were doing short courses, a lot of stuff was tied in with FutureLearn, and unfortunately, nobody is really doing that type of thing anymore. But that's not the issue today. I wanted to show you the potential of podcasting and what has happened in the podcast space since. What I want to argue for is a mechanism to allow our research teams to get their work out to a wider public. So let's go back to this financial podcast on Spotify that I mentioned earlier. This is a project by Professor George Callahan and Martin Higginson from FAS, and it's about public engagement in finance. They wanted to do a podcast series documenting their research and getting some public engagement through that. I set them up with audio kit and a little bit of training. They found their contributors from across the financial spectrum. They wrote scripts, recorded all the episodes. I edited them all. That was the easy part. The hard part for them was getting the podcast published, as there's no obvious way that is supported by the OU. So podcasts don't magically appear on Spotify and such. You need to provide them the files, technically correct with all the associated metadata, and then pay for them to kind of get promoted. And you need to do that for every available podcasting service, and there's a lot of podcasting services out there. Alternatively, you could pay for a hosting company who will do all the hard work for you. A small monthly fee gets you access to potentially millions of listeners across multitudes of podcast providers. So in the end, thanks largely to the goodwill of various individuals, George and Martin did get their podcasts up on Spotify, which we can see here. And they've proved quite successful. But unfortunately, a lack of further funding means that the project is now on hold until the foreseeable future. My notes haven't copied across at this bit. This is something that I just wanted to point out. So this is the OU Medieval and Early Modern Encounters group. They've also done some really nice podcasts. They're on SoundCloud. I recommend you go and listen to them, because at the moment they only have one follower, and that's me. And it's a really good example of how not having any kind of set-up support for researchers who want to get their work out can limit people's engagement. So they did all this work, which is really good, but then they're stuck. They don't know what to do next. So I think they deserve a little bit of a listen if you can. So what next for research? Well, I've mentioned the huge potential for audience reach borne out by the iTunes use figures. I'm not saying every research figure is going to get huge audiences, but this is a massive opportunity for the OU to connect with audiences and potential students. The finance ones that George and Martin did are linked to DD125. That's coming out next year, I think. By putting these podcasts out, not only do students get to access them, but there's a chance to engage the general public. There's an opportunity for people to hear something, become engaged, and want to find out more, hopefully, by an OU course. There's also the impact for research itself, which is why we're here. So podcasts can engender a spirit of collaboration and knowledge exchange. The OU gets to publicize its research, and this provides outreach which can help perhaps with funding applications. They serve also as a wonderful calling card for our colleagues to use when they're at conferences. You know, you can point to a podcast that you've done. I'm suggesting, and it's only a suggestion, that FAST provides support for a kit of parts for research teams to borrow. This can be enhanced with full training, simple guides on how to make podcasts, not focusing too much on the technical, but on the important part, which is the story. And we can give advice on kit for faculties to buy. We would also need an OU account with a podcast host. So basically, the podcast can be dropped onto it and the rest taken care of. So perhaps that would be handled by the research team and its research office. And it's a really good point to mention that this really shouldn't be FAS's endeavour alone. This is for all the OU. So whilst each faculty can provide its own loan kits from its budget, the payments for supporting a podcast host perhaps can be shared across all, which would really lower the costs. And the costs aren't particularly high in the first place. So some challenges, and I'm going to take my rose-tinted glasses off now. So something to note is that by doing podcasts, you're adding to academics' precious time when suggesting that they go and make them. They're not for everyone, but I think we should provide an atmosphere where people are emboldened to make some things themselves. Most importantly, who are we doing this for? Are we doing it for the students, or are we doing it for research teams promoting their work? Or maybe both? Knowing that is really important when anybody around here is setting out to do a podcast. Know your audience. Are we going to try and monetize these? Personally, I think this is a trap that we really should avoid. In order to gain traction and therefore influence, we need to think a lot about promotion. So who's going to do some of the promotion for us? You know, simply putting the podcast up isn't necessarily going to get you the audience. You still have to work on that. So all of that engagement is going to take a lot of work. In the iTunes U days, Apple was actively promoting the OU on its pages, but of course we had to continue to provide content for it to do that. And as I said, nobody's got the time to devote to doing that sort of thing anymore. So it's a question of staffing. It's really unlikely that we can provide a separate podcasting staff to check each podcast that goes out, you know, for important things like perhaps defamation. So we would definitely require a set of guidelines and best practice to hand out for people. Do faculties all chip into one pot? A bit like the Vimeo project that we're working on at the moment, where some of our videos are hosted on Vimeo, and that's supported by a couple of faculties here. Or do we make, and we make a provider for everyone, so we say, if you'll make your podcast, give it to this podcast host. Or do we just say individual research teams have to find a podcast host for their own, but that's part of their research budget? So I want us to start this conversation amongst ourselves and across faculties. And if anyone's got any questions to ask about it, please see me afterwards. Thank you all very much.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll get started with the afternoon session. Just a few bits of boring housekeeping, if I may, to start off with. Lots of plans underway for exciting new OpenARC events next year, but our next activity is on the 5th of June. We're holding a joint event with the Health and the Arts Research Group, led by Rosemary Golding, and with Creative Interactions with Christine Plastow. And that's going to be followed by an external funding workshop, and that's on the 5th of June in library seminar rooms 1 and 2 from 1:15 to 4:30. Please register, please come. There will be catering, I believe, so you'll get another free lunch if you want one. But please do come to that. If I could also please ask you to complete some feedback from today's event. There are post-it notes, and there are also those lovely OpenARC postcards, which are blank on the other side and designed for you to scribble all over them. So please provide us with feedback, positive, negative, indifferent, whatever. And there is a box, there's a blue box that you can put your feedback into, and Claire is managing the box, and it's just outside the Hub Theatre. So it's in the first stall outside the theatre. So please provide us with feedback. It's really important. If there are things you've enjoyed, let us know. If there are things that we can improve, let us know. Really important. A couple of other quick reminders. If you have received OpenARC funding this year, we would like to hear from you. We want your good news. And thank you to all the colleagues who have sent us their good news. Please keep sending us news about your OpenARC funded research. You'll also have another email reminder about the online feedback form, so please complete that and send it to us. For those of you who, like me, who are still to do your OpenARC funded research activity because it's later in the year, make sure you do it before July the 31st, so we have a record of what you've done. Okay, if you haven't done so already, also follow us on Blue Sky. We do now have a Blue Sky account. I think I'm done with the sort of public announcement. So I think I can just introduce Professor Adrienne Scullion now, who's our faculty executive dean. And thank you very, very much for coming today and supporting us. Adrienne, over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see you all. It's really what a treat to be on campus in this lovely weather, isn't it? It's really a special place, and events like this are so special to bring us all together as well. So thanks for inviting me along. I'm really delighted to be here because it gives me a really good opportunity to say thank you for the research work that you have been doing, the research management that the OpenARC team have been doing, and thank you for the work that you're doing to develop, to deliver, to share great research in and out of the School of Arts and Humanities. You have achieved so much, colleagues. You know, I can look around, I can see. You have achieved so much in the short time that you've used the OpenARC structures, shape, to support and develop the work. And it really bodes well for the future, doesn't it? It bodes well for the work to come as that shape, as that structure embeds, iterates, as the models for good practice are shared amongst us all. It really sets quite a stretch ambition. I'll be going away with some stretch KPIs for you because I think the foundation is really clear and strong and full of energy. You want OpenARC to provide a frame, a context, a community to share, to challenge, to collaborate, to share, to challenge and to collaborate on original research from within, across and from beyond the disciplines of the arts and the humanities. And of course, you know that from the community of researchers based in the School of Arts and Humanities, that the research challenge, the research invitation is extended. The research invitation is extended out and beyond the school. The community of practice is opened more widely to national and international networks of scholars, and in some projects or networks to participants, users, audiences too. All of us looking to enjoy the ambition of your research, the ambition of the outward-looking research, and I guess fundamentally to be open. And keeping that door open, keeping that invitation to engage, to collaborate, to co-author is so important, isn't it? Keeping the door open is the mission of our university and its learning and teaching, and we know that it matters in research too. Access is hardwired in all our learning and teaching, just as impact is a fundamental principle of our research environment and culture. Colleagues, sharing research is a wonderful and special thing. Leaving home to come, I saw on my bookshelf, a book that I received, a research book that I received as a gift from a colleague. A female environmental scientist that I work with as part of a sort of networking, mentoring, networking-y thing, gave me a copy of Fiona Reynolds' book, The Fight for Beauty. And how special was that? How special, and I reflect how special that was for me. A carefully chosen book that was resonant with the giver's research interests as an environmental scientist, that was directed towards my work as a cultural historian, and looking to join the dots, using that research, using Fiona's research to join the dots around landscape, place, and environmental studies, and written by an inspiring woman academic. A great fit for me and my colleague, a special object. A book and output is always a special object, isn't it? But even more special, that journey of discovery and illumination when you open the leaves, when you read, when you actually engage with the research and you're sharing in that learning and sharing in that community of researchers. Colleagues, as you undertake this work, as we look to share our research, we're all alert, aren't we, to the internal and external pressures on our art side subjects, and perhaps on arts and humanities most of all. There have been and are challenges to the worth of studying in these disciplines at every educational level. There have been and are attempts to put one side of the academy, one side of the research community, science side against art side, against other kinds of methods, other kinds of questions. And there's been a pushback from the media and even government on the teaching and research of topics that might seem difficult, that might seem to challenge norms, or that might value otherness, that might include new objects of study, use new methodologies, new approaches to study, or bring new voices into the space of research and the community of learning that drives that. We see pressure on our colleagues in US, HEIs, and its funders and endowments as never before. Sorry, is my paper, well, there's a trailer for what's to coming. But we're seeing pressure on our US colleagues as never before, aren't we? We're seeing the unsustainability of the UK's HE finances as never before. And we're seeing that impact on institutions with strong foundations, in terms of place, with strong foundations in terms of research, with strong commitments to art side. We're absolutely seeing that impact really generally. Perhaps more locally, we can see changing leadership certainly within our institution, maybe even more locally, we can see changing leadership in our institution, but we can see changing leadership in UKRI. A new chief executive joining there, and we'll see the missions of government, the missions of the new government, well, the one-year-old government, being brought to bear on policy making, and absolutely, colleagues, I think, will have no question, will be brought to bear on UKRI and its priorities. So those missions around about economic growth, the NHS, safer streets, breaking down barriers for opportunity and clean energy will absolutely shape the research environment moving forward, whether that's as thematic opportunities or whether that's just as a reiteration, a refresh of grand challenge agenda. But colleagues, I think we need to be alert to that, and that's why groups like yours thinking about organising research into communities will be so important. And colleagues, European funding is back. European funding is open for UK engagement, and that's another route, another set of networks for some of your projects and some of your goals. In such a context of change, challenge, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that what we do is of the highest quality. That it's inclusive and including, that it's open and it's new, and that it's rigorous. We want to share it within the Academy in events like this. We also want to share it in our teaching, driving, refreshing our teaching. We want to share it in our publishing, and we want to share it in our engagement with academic networks and with non-academic users too. And realising that aspiration, realising those goals is what you have accepted to be the challenge of OpenARC, stepping into that space, stepping up to the challenge of the values of research and the management challenge of research too, and the policy challenge that's out there too, keeping pace with individual scholars' ambition, excitement and pleasure in doing research, and matching that to the challenging times and the opportunities that are available there. And that's what I'm so proud to see the OpenARC leadership doing, and so excited to see you all leaning into that. Colleagues, reducing costs and maximising income is obviously a key institutional priority. In the context of a live voluntary severance scheme, it can be nothing else, can't it? We must acknowledge that that's a live contemporary challenge for us as we plan our work, as we pursue our work now and plan our work for the future. But colleagues, remember that within the frame that FAS, the faculty has identified, retention, reach, getting the basics right, and research are our 4 strategic priorities, the key things on which we want to focus to secure our long-term future, our long-term vitality as an academic community. In the research space and in the research priority, we want to focus on value, grow the quality of research, the quality of the research that we do as sole scholars, and the quality of the research that we do in teams of all sizes. We absolutely want to leverage from small and internal seed fundings, including OCS, to grow more ambitious ideas, to grow more ambitious projects that target external income to grow the community that work with us. And we want to use events like this to raise the visibility of what you do for everyone within the university, so that we can create the environment and the culture that sustains our research goals, even in the context of managing resources better, in the context of colleagues exiting, in the context of time being squeezed, in the face of multiple competing priorities. Research is the starting point because we're a university. Doing all of that is a team effort. It requires a difficult balancing of resources and priorities, but you can be confident, colleagues, that your OpenARC leadership team and your school leadership executive is alert to, positive about, committed to achieving a really good balance with research and the creation and mobilising of new knowledge, inspiring and renewing all our work. So colleagues, great job. Great job in getting OpenARC motoring. Great job in gearing for the challenges that will lie ahead, the challenges within and without the institution, local as well as national and sometimes international. But at root, let's try to recollect and share and celebrate the pleasures as well as the responsibilities of pursuing art-side university research. Thank you.
Thank you. Very kind words and very thoughtful and very supportive and encouraging in a very challenging environment. I'm now going to invite Rose Capdevila, who is our Associate Dean for Research, to come and introduce some of our wonderful impact case studies in development within our school. We've got one from each discipline. Rose, over to you.
Hello. I don't have anything to add really to what Adrienne said because she just said all of the things. So, excellent. Yeah, I just wanted to say how much I agree. I was here for Shaf's intro. Unfortunately, I had to leave during the morning. He said about the importance of the arts and humanities and how I think the OU in particular has a really important role to play in the arts and humanities in this country where, you know, and I think we have that possibility. We have a possibility of making arts and humanities accessible to lots of people who otherwise wouldn't have that access, and which I think is incredibly important. We don't want to lose that. So I want to agree. Also, the points, he made about kind of the impact that arts and humanities has, and the impact that the research has, but also the teaching has. I'm not really good at separating teaching and research all that much. I find that they're very. What's wrong with me? I'm sorry. Too many meetings today, sorry. They're really intertwined, very closely intertwined. They're about learning, they're about producing knowledge, they're about sharing knowledge. And I think a lot of the work that you've done with OpenARC, and I've worked with, first with Gemma and now with Shaf, it's been an absolute joy. I mean, one of the things that I'm really going to miss when I'm not ADR is having access and knowledge of all these kinds of cool things that are going on in arts and humanities when my world becomes a bit smaller again. But I think so many great projects, and OpenARC have really given the opportunity to kind of let those shine a light on them. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to introduce some people who will tell you about their excellent work. And I think the first one is going to be, is Christine Plastow. Yes? Oh, there we are. Hi, Christine. And you're representing classical studies on mythical storytelling and the changing environment. Yeah. And I'm whatever. It's about what value do traditional forms of storytelling have for creating a deeper relationship with the environment, which is lovely. And a sense of hope and empowerment about the possibility of fighting climate breakdown. So, welcome. Thank you.
This so I can hopefully keep to time. Okay, so hello everybody. Gosh, I've never stood at the front of this room before, and it's a big room. So yes, I'm Christine Plastow from Classical Studies, and this is Mythic Storytelling and the Changing Environment. You can see our lovely friend, the cormorant, standing on his log there. So yeah, as Rose just alluded to, this is a project about exploring how myth, folklore, and other traditional forms of storytelling can help us to think about our relationship in the present and in the future with the world around us, with the environment, with what some people might call nature, and thinking about how we can move from a sense that I think a lot of people have of feeling hopelessness, of feeling disempowered about our ability to intervene in climate crisis, towards a feeling of hope, of empowerment, of focus, and of being able to take action, even only small action, to protect our environment and to rebuild our relationship with the world around us. We're developing a program of events, which in the next phase we hope will be a touring program of events. The main feature is a theatrical performance, which I'll say more about in a second, and that's accompanied by community workshops, where we will work with community members all around the UK to help them to tell their own stories about their local environments. And also what I've called a post-show symposium here. I mean this kind of in the Greek sense of a lot of people getting together and talking about something. Not an audience Q&A, but an actual dialogue between people to think about how we can, to respond to the theatrical performance. So anyway, what's the play? In the green box here, we've just named it in the last few weeks. It's going to be called When I Will Be a Bird. And it's a show which features 3 storytellers who are bird-like, telling stories about other birds in myth, about human beings, about plants, other animals, the weather, the climate, the landscape. And they tell these stories to each other as a way to try and understand how they've got to where they are. These 3 birds are out on a rock in a flooded landscape. What has happened to the world around them, they're not quite sure. But they're bringing these stories, kind of collecting them from around the world and around parts of the land that might not be flooded, bringing them together and trying to use those stories as a way to understand what went wrong in the past and what might be done differently in the future. And in the community workshops, we're hoping that we'll be inviting people to tell new stories of their own, to make their own myths, to tell their own stories about local environmental change. You can see the picture up at the top here is from Loch Ness in Antrim in Northern Ireland. A really wonderful mythical landscape with evocative foundation myths, how the loch was made by the giant Finn McCool, and which also is at the moment suffering from outbreaks of blue-green algae, which are killing local wildlife, really affecting people and animals in the area. And so in our show, one of the stories we tell is weaving together those mythological origins for the location with the scientific reality of what's happening. And we're hoping that by using myth, we can make elements of climate science that can seem really inaccessible to people, to make those seem more real, to make them more accessible, and also to give people a way into thinking about how they might intervene. The process so far, you can see some of my lovely team on the left-hand side there. We've had some research trips to Liverpool and Belfast. We've been working with local practitioners. We really want this to be a project where, as we tour to each location, we can respond to environmental concerns in that location. We're mingling research into myths, Greek myths, of course, but also other mythic traditions, other folklore traditions. We've been working together, we've been devising together, we've been experimenting with different ways of storytelling, including improvisation, musical storytelling, and we had a work in progress sharing last June, which highlighted this kind of core concept, and we got some really positive feedback for it. So in November, in fact, from the 4th to the 8th of November, we hope, When I Will Be a Bird will be showing at the Bread and Roses Theatre in Clapham in London, and I'm hoping to also bring a showing to campus, and also to Royal Holloway, University of London, one of our partner institutions, and to the University of Bristol, along with some ways we can test out these workshops. I really will be inviting all of you to come and help us test out our workshop and help us learn how to tell stories together with people coming from all different kinds of backgrounds. Of course, we've been supported by Open Societal Challenges in phase 1, which is what this process outline so far was, and now in phase 2, which is us working towards the London run. Phase 3 will be the touring production. What's the potential impact? You can see these lovely notes on the right-hand side. We did an exercise in our work in progress work in our research and development where we all wrote down how we wanted people to feel when they came out of the show, and loads of us wrote down we wanted people to feel hope. We wanted them to feel hopeful. We're hoping that this will be an impact, is to allow audiences to feel more connected to the environment, to feel hope that climate change, that slowing and even reversing climate change is possible, and to feel that they have an ability to make a change. We're drawing on carbon literacy training, principles from carbon literacy training in our workshops. There's also impact from my side on the creative practitioners in my team, but that's really a process of co-creation. I'm teaching them things, they're teaching me things, and we're working together to develop this project. And hopefully there will also be there will also be impact on the workshop participants, which should be about making people's unique contexts visible. We really want people to be bringing myths that are meaningful to them, perhaps from their own cultural backgrounds. The environmental concerns that they have, we know that in parts of the country it's flooding, in parts it's biodiversity loss, in parts it's drought, things vary from place to place. And so we've got all different ways that we're hoping to capture all of that impact. I think that's the project so far. I don't think I need to say anything more about it now. I've hit my 7 minutes, which I think was my deadline. If you want to know anything more about it, I'm over at the Creative Interactions table all afternoon, and I'd love to tell you more. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Christine. That was really, really interesting. I love the creative methodologies. It's so lovely to hear how they're playing out and bringing together all these different things around something that's quite crucial and important at this time. Interesting, this next one is also about the Earth crisis. Dr. Carla Benzan, sorry if did I pronounce that right? I'm so sorry, and who's presenting for art history, changing public responses to today's Earth crisis through the art and visual cultures of the past. And with this project, Art and Ecology aims to change the ways museums shape public understandings of this Earth crisis through the art and visual cultures of the past, which also sounds incredibly interesting. So, welcome, Carla.
It is a big room. I'm going to also time myself because otherwise we'll be here a long time. All right. So thanks so much for asking me to come along. Some of you will have heard about Art and Ecology already, but this is a project that Sam Shaw and I have been working on for some years now, since COP26, when the good folks at the OU Scotland got in touch with the art history department and said, hey, do you have some people that are interested in sort of working with Kelvin Grove and the museums there? And Sam and I both put our hands up very, very quickly. It's been going on for a while. I guess we could call it phase one was a bit one phase, and we're sort of in phase two. So let's take a look. So essentially, the idea of art and ecology is that we want to change how museums are working with their publics. So whereas Christine's talking about the audiences and things, sort of the people we're gathering evidence from are the museums, because in a sense what Sam and I are both so interested in is how art collections and natural history and science, material culture, social history collections are kept in different buildings, or even more interestingly, often in the same building but exhibited entirely separately. And so the very starting off point of working with the folks in Kelvin Grove, we wanted to bring attention to how the history of our relationship to the Earth and the climate crisis, the Earth crisis, kind of is the foundations of the problems we're facing now kind of come from this separation of art and science, this perception that art and science are separated. And it's vital that this happens in the past when this separation was not sort of articulated in the same way that it is now. So on the one hand, bringing together art and science, on the other hand, past and present. So what we started doing was making films. We worked with an environmental director, Libby Penman, who's local to Glasgow and works with the BBC and is normally out there filming great crested grebes and kelp beds, and we brought her into Kelvin Grove, and it was really a co-production of films, educational films about the history of the climate crisis. So there was one that talked about rather banal-looking portraits of people wearing ostrich feather headdresses and saying, hey, this can, if we look at these paintings and look beyond the people in the center and we look to the animals there, then what does this tell us? And that film is the one that I did, and it really, as you see the Lord Montgomery in the corner, it kind of took us through the painting into a long history of people's relationships to birds, bird conservation, and all sorts of really interesting issues. So the taxidermy collection was brought into that film. We interviewed the RSPB and talked about the history of conservation in the UK. So in a sense, this was a public-facing film, an educational film that was giving people another view on national collections. So we've done 3 films. We're working on a 4th topic with people in Paisley. We've worked in Perth, Glasgow, and in Paisley. So it's all been really focused in Scotland just because that's where we were welcomed. They have great collections up there. They're wonderful people. So this is what we've been doing is working on climate education with museums. The way that we disseminated the films and sort of this project, this idea, was in various different modes. So we would go to the Science Festival in Glasgow. We worked with teachers. We ran CPD workshops with teachers and museum educators, arguing that bringing art and science together really is a powerful sort of way to use your collections to engage with the climate. They're doing great things in Scotland with the museum collections and trying to curate for climate histories, but oftentimes it stays in art or it stays in the science kind of sphere and they're not being brought together. So what else have we been doing? Yeah, so then we've been working with Art UK, which is a fantastic charity that is digitizing national collections. And the people at Art UK, hi. The people at Art UK have been putting together educational resource packs with us for teachers. So there's been a kind of diffusion of the idea of the films in this first phase to the public on the one hand, to teachers. It's been a bit dispersed, is what I'm trying to say, with lots of potential, but really that sense of where are we going, how are we bringing this all together is just, I think, coming together now with phase 2. So essentially at this point, I'm actually very soon, in like the next day, going back up to Scotland, where we're working with Paisley Museum. So we've started working with museums who are closed currently and refreshing, reinvigorating, reconceiving their collections. So Sam worked in Perth, where they were actually separating the art and museum collections. And currently I'm working with Paisley, where these collections, the art and science collections, are together, ostensibly. They're in the same building, but they're exhibited separately. So Paisley and I have been working on insect biodiversity as an issue, and thinking about how to take this climate education model of the past in art and science and taking it into the realm of action. Okay, so essentially what we are doing is running a big festival, like a community festival, in which artists, art historians, and scientists are coming together and talking about biodiversity to celebrate the International Day for Biological Diversity, is actually called. So it's like a testing ground. It's happening on Saturday, and it's happening at a community center where the folks that live there don't normally access the Paisley Museum. And so we're kind of coming to where they are and running a whole bunch of really exciting activities and screening the films using pedal power cinema, as we always do. Coming out of this is in a sense a kind of fulcrum, I think, so that we're going to be really working more closely and tightly with, I think, the museum workers, educators, and the curators to see what it is that stops them from thinking about art and science together, stops them from thinking about the historical past and social history and historical objects in terms of the climate crisis. What is it that stops them from taking that into their practice as educators or as curators and giving them a toolkit so that they can do this kind of work more easily? I think that might be my last, yes it is, that's my last slide. And I'm at 7:21, so thanks.
Thank you so much, Carla. Yes, so next we have representative from music, Dr. Laura Hamer, who's looking at gender equity in classical music industry. I'm just going to do that so it's the right slide. Women transforming classical music. So welcome to Laura.
Yeah, I can see this is a very big room and I'm a very small person, so yeah. So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak about my impact work today. So as Rose very kindly said, this is about trying to strive for greater gender equity within the classical music industry. Some research carried out last year by the Donné Women in Music Foundation found out that 92.5% of all orchestral repertoire which was played last year was by men. So a lot of this work is thinking about what can we do to change the situation so that it's more representative of the rich diversity of the classical music past and the present. So I wanted to say just a little bit about the underpinning research and what led me to do this. So I have a very long-standing interest in historic women conductors. I was a little bit shocked when I was putting this together, and I found there's a picture here of the first orchestra that I looked at, the Orchestre Féminin de Paris, Paris Women's Orchestra, founded in Paris by Jeanne Evra in 1932, and I realized I did that almost 20 years ago now, so, oh, okay, I felt it, yes. So there were huge numbers of women conductors and of all-women orchestras from the 1870s up to the Second World War. You have this rapid development of music conservatoires in Europe throughout the 19th century. They were admitting lots of women students, but they could not get jobs in orchestras. So you found these women coming together to found their own orchestras, most of which were led by women conductors. And it's a bit ironic, it's actually the Second World War, military conscription, that women could get into male orchestras, but then you had a knock on that you didn't have opportunities for women on the podium, and that started to change really only in the last kind of 5 to 10 years. So I was really interested in the leadership these women were showing, not only on, but also beyond the podium, that they were having huge impact in the classical music cultures and industries of the time, because they were really pushing and driving change. This led me to explore the notion of women's musical leadership more broadly. And there have been kind of two strands to this in the last couple of years. One was an HRC network, which was looking at women's musical leadership largely in the music industries and in music education and the pipeline between the two. And the other resulted in one of these really big Routledge companions, big books that Routledge do, Women in Musical Leadership, looking from the 19th century and beyond. This was a joint project with my very good colleague, Professor Helen Miners at York St. John. So this is the sort of the underpinning research. And to talk a little bit about the impact and what I've been doing. So over the last sort of 45 months, I've produced an Open Learn course, which is really aimed at supporting performers and supporting music organizations to diversify their repertoires by playing more music by historic and contemporary women composers. So when I spoke to a lot of people in the music industry when I started working on this, and lots of them told me, well, we would play it, but it doesn't exist. You have to understand, Laura, there weren't any in the past. So I was like, oh, right, I've dedicated my life to something that doesn't exist, thank you. But of course, that's not actually true. There are a huge amount of resources out there. There are resources, there are scores, and there's actually lots of funding that people can apply to perform this music. So the course brings this together. So it's aimed at a training course for people to use to see what is out there and how they can use it. It's going live next week. I have a number of organizations already who have committed to use it as training and to use it to shape what they're going to program. I've got a launch event happening here at Walton Hall on the 18th of July. I want as many classical music people or anyone interested in classical music to come. So if you're involved in amateur groups in particular, or your friends who are, please send them my way, because some of the best work being done in terms of programming different things actually with amateur ensembles. The other bit of the impact I've been doing over the last few months is I've done a big suite of just very little short social media videos about composers, because it's sort of excuse I would get as well. People say, oh, you can't perform that because no one knows who they are, so they won't come. So these are very short little interviews just to kind of pique people's curiosity, to pique audience curiosity, and well, who were these women? What did they write? So that's the next stage, really, is working with the organisations that have already committed to use it and to find more, working with them how they're going to embed it and how that's going to shape their programming moving forwards. So that's everything from me. And please come on the 18th of July or send your musical friends and your people in ensembles because they are very welcome.
Thank you, Laura. That was great, and I'm going to try and be here on the 18th. Quite excited about it all. I didn't know about this, so wonderful. Next, we have Dr. Philip Seargeant's work, but it's being presented by Nicola Watson. Is that, yeah, there you are, by Nicola Watson. So this is a representation of English and creative writing, and it's City of Symbols. There we go. Transforming the politics of language and heritage in the public space. And what the project aims to enhance understanding about and facilitate change in the ways in which public space is used as a forum for conversations about British heritage and values. And
Well, magically channeling Philip here, who can't be with us. One of the things that is of interest about this impact case study is that the unit of assessment within which literature and creative writing sits with D27 is actually called language, literature and creative writing. So we work across the faculty barrier with Wells, and this is one of our linguistics colleagues leading on one of our 4 impact case studies, and we chose to in preparation. We chose to present this one because it's been one that we prioritized for work and funding this year. So, the aim of the project, as Rose has already said, is to explore how public space, or what is called in sociolinguistics, the linguistic landscape, is used as a forum for conversations about British, in scare quotes, heritage and values. The goal is the uplifting and reframing of marginalized and forgotten narratives with a focus on how they can be communicated as part of contemporary political culture, and particularly as these relate to ideas of British heritage and identity. So the impact case study and the associated or underpinning Open Societal Challenges project is addressing the following questions. I'm just going to discover whether the next slide lists this. Not quite. How is public space, and in particular urban space, used as a site for active citizenship and for emotional and political engagement, conceived as citizenship? How is it achieved through linguistic and semiotic means? And what sort of framework can be developed to be of use specifically to community organizations to understand how national and cultural heritage is both constructed and communicated in the public landscape, and how people engage with and can engage with, contest and debate it, and specifically how grassroots groups can therefore contribute to shaping it. Well, that draws on Philip's research on a number of collaborative projects that he has been running on cultural representation and social activism, including the visibility of the Black presence in the heritage landscape and the use of public space for grassroots political activism. And if you're interested, I refer you to Donald over here, who is one of the co-directors of the related research group, Language, Literature and Politics, which brings together our linguistics colleagues, our literature colleagues, and some colleagues in politics. He has flyers. A takeaway, a souvenir, what could be nicer? Philip has also made, get this, a number of open learn resources reporting on this research, such as an article on "Is the Blue Plaque Scheme Still Relevant?", which he says rather sweetly here, you can seek out if you are interested. So I hope and trust that you're just about to start fiddling on your phones. The underlying research, the referable stuff, is a Book Prize-nominated monograph entitled Political Activism in the Linguistic Landscape. Vide here, not actually, I think, for sale, but a sample copy available, which takes the novel form and specifically a deliberately experimental form of an academic graphic novel. And I'm looking forward to writing one of those, having already read his. One of the major strands that Philip's been pursuing this last funded year is creating cultural maps as a way of exploring the interrelation between place, people, and ideas, and how such cultural maps can help us understand and communicate different types of heritage narrative. And again, should you wish to follow one of these maps, which are based in London, and I know there are people here who are based in London as well, freely available from Donald. Thank you, thank you. The use of these maps is being the focus, really, of various workshops that Philip is running over the next few months with his various collaborators. They are all part of the broader investigation of communicating the cultural heritage of a place in a manner designed to transcend the constraints associated with many contemporary commemoration projects. So one of Philip's bugbears, really, is how little writing you can get onto a blue plaque, or what he describes as the limited textual space on blue plaques. But primarily what he's interested in, like we all are really, is how to present an academic research in engaging non-traditional ways that actually has purchase upon what one might perhaps call real people. And here you will see a long list of some of the resources and the events that Philip, with considerable energy, has been developing over the last year. And again, I will just highlight here the what's called here the Literary Letters International Conference, but it's in fact called Literature and Letters Conference that we're running out of English and Creative Writing in November 2025, led, very ably led by Sarah Haslam, to which, of course, you are all warmly welcomed. And thank you very much.
Thank you for stepping in there, Nicola. Yeah, sorry, that was just the interdisciplinary there. It was just fantastic to watch, wasn't it? How it was drawing on all these different things. Sorry, I'm just using my own music, so you know what it is. The next one and the final one is Roz Crone. There she is, presenting for history. I like how she wrote down, using the past to unlock the reform of prisons in the present, and then in brackets it says, working title, exclamation point? Yes, yes. Anyway, the project uses prison history to help facilitate meaningful reform in the present, so I will welcome you to...
So I hear there's a party that's going to start in here really soon, so let's see how quickly we can do this. Okay, yes, no, that's a good summary of my project and probably took away my first line as well. Basically, this impact case study is really about the way we can use insights gained from studying the history of prisons in the UK to contribute to discussion around meaningful reform of prisons in the present. And it's very timely, right? Because if you listen to the radio or the news, you will be aware that prisons at the moment are in a state of crisis. And that's because of overcrowding, it's because of deteriorating conditions, and it's also because of the decline, if there ever was any real time devoted to it, purposeful activity, including education. So, the idea here is that our current prison system was basically created in the 19th century. And those experiences, those ideas, those debates from the 19th century, 150, 200 years ago, they continue to inform the experience of imprisonment today. And so, if we can better understand those debates, if we can better understand the underpinning basis of our prison system today, then we might have a better chance of opening up really big questions about what are prisons for? You know, how should we be reforming them? Can we think more creatively about what we can do in this space? It's removing the shackles of the past, if you like. Right, let's move on. Okay, the underpinning research. The underpinning research is quite substantial because this impact case study has had a long gestation, you might say. First of all, it began with an award of AHRC funding in 2013. And that was for a project on the history of prison education in England. Now, to do that project, first I had to really map out the prison system that existed in 19th century England, because no one had really done that work. We just knew there were a lot of prisons, but no one had figured out where they all were and how they all operated and worked in a kind of a network. So I set about doing that, and it created a rather large data set, something pretty giant, actually. But that was great because that then spun out some of the outputs. So that data set didn't just include the names of the prison, where they were located around England. It also had their operational dates. It had information about how big they were, how many people they held at any one time, and also all the surviving primary sources that we have for each institution. So it was a massive undertaking. This data set was published as a 2-volume guide to the criminal prisons of 19th century England, which I've put up there, and at the same time as a website, prisonhistory.org. And then finally, I finished the book I was meant to write, Illiterate Inmates, which is up there too. So yet more underpinning research. Brilliant. So what have I been doing with my time since? Here are some of the activities associated with the project that have been generating some impact. The first is a badged open course on OpenLearn called Exploring the History of Prisoner Education. This was funded through AHRC follow-on funding and also created in partnership with Prisoners Education Trust. We had also employed former prisoners as consultants as part of the little module team that we established to write this course. So it was quite an enriching experience, actually. We're very happy with how it went, even though COVID came along at the same time and it got tricky. But, you know, hey, we managed it and it's out in the world. We ran a pilot at HMP Leeds in the spring of 2022, which had some success, especially with staff more than the prisoners, because it's remand prisons. They kept moving the prisoners out and they didn't get to finish it every time they started it, which is a bit of a shame. Last time I checked, we had 61,000 visits to the course. It's pretty good. Happy with that, and 940 enrolled learners. That was a year ago. I need to update when I've looked. I will check again soon. We launched the BOC at the Prisoners Education Trust Conference in 2022? Yes, 2022. And there I met a senior Ofsted inspector who focused on kind of education in prisons. And she was really, really interested. So she invited me to come have a chat and said, look, what I really want from you is a set of bespoke videos that I can use within my organization to tool people up, you know, help them understand the historical context of work they do. I said, yeah, sure. So I produced them a suite of videos, which is up there as well, down underneath the BOC. And that's been really great. It's now part of CPD training for Ofsted inspectors who work in the prison sector. So nice. I also picked up some more contacts at that launch. It was a very fruitful day. I got an in at the Ministry of Justice. I've been trying to do that for many years. Cracked it. So, working in partnership with them, I set up a lunchtime talk series. So, lunchtimes, you know, we do about 3 a term. Civil servants turn up who are working in the Prison Policy Directorate and listen to a historian giving a talk on prisons. And that's been really successful too. We've had some great talks. I've presented my own research. And the civil servants have really enjoyed it. I tried to stop it because it's quite a drain on my time, but they keep asking for more. So, you know, we're in the cycle, we continue. Another team at Modge got in touch. They'd seen my website, prisonhistory.org, because they'd been looking for a historian who knew about prisons. They were making a film. Their reducing, reoffending comms team were producing a film, and they chose an HMP Lincoln, and they were making a film on a catering course there to speak to rehabilitation, so to speak to the public about what can happen in prisons that's good. So they called me up and they said, we need your help. We want a historical perspective in the film. I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. And they're expecting me to say, prisons in the 19th century were really, really bad. They put everyone on the treadmill, you know, they're all doing shop drill, and it was awful. And I said, no, actually, it's not the case. There's a really interesting, long history of rehabilitation. They said, super, let's put that in the film. So we did. And we created a really nice narrative arc through that film, connecting the past and the present. It did very well. It had 74,000 views in 2 weeks. Normally, they don't get more than 3,000 views, their films, so quid's in. And Downing Street started talking about it as well. Brilliant, lovely conversations at Downing Street, and it won an industry award. So that's really good. And then I've also been disseminating my work through print media. So I've got BBC History Magazine, piece on my book at the top there, and also Inside Time got in touch, hoping for a little piece that connected the past and the present, because they had an image of a cell from Wandsworth today. I had the same cell from the 19th century. So we put them together and did a bit of a piece, and it was great fun. Then in 2023-24, I was a historical consultant for a major Channel 4 documentary on the history of prisons. And I worked with the producers of that documentary in creating a nice narrative arc over their 3 episodes, so organizing their material to have 3 punchy things about what we could say about what goes on in prisons, you know, from the late 18th century up until the late 20th. So, yeah, that's great. How did I do? Party time.
That was great. Thank you, Roz. It's great the way you highlighted the kind how you engage with others, with the external environment in your work, which is great. I don't have very much more to say. I just want to say a couple of things about research in the faculty, which is, I think anybody who's heard me talk has said, in this faculty, what we aim to do is support research in an equitable and sustainable way. The sustainables become a little bit more challenging, but it's still an ambition. And you see these impact case studies also, and there's so many more. We know there's so many more, don't we? The impact leads, the OA leads. And the way OSC has been supporting them, and we've got funding to support them. And I think what we want to do is, as much as possible, make time, make the capacity, use the resources we have to be able to really support this work. We do have resources to support this work. Yes, they're more limited than they used to be. Yes, but there are those opportunities there. And being able to do that, really being able to put the arts and humanities out there, show the world what it can do, show what, you know, how it engages the world, how it can help, how it can make the world a better place, to be very trite, I think is there. And I think the research office is there to support that. That's our only purpose. So please let us do that, and we'd be happy to help. So I'll hand you back to Sheff. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose, and thanks to our 5 impact case study presenters. Absolutely terrific stuff. I mean, just a general comment. It's all wonderfully rich and diverse, isn't it? I mean, the ways in which we kind of engage with public audiences in terms of our research is incredibly strong. And we're kind of learning from one another as well, which is another big advantage of having school-based and faculty-based structures, so we can sort of support each other's work. Like all good things, this festival must come to an end, unfortunately, sadly. But I'd like to start with a fairly long list of thanks, though please bear with me, because I think there are many people to thank for today. First of all, thank you to our impact case study presenters that we've just heard from, and thank you for Nicola for presenting on Philip's behalf. Thank you to Matthew Holley from the School of Creative Industries for his excellent presentation on podcasts, to James Dooley for the wonderful musical performance at lunchtime, to Caroline Green from Broadcasts and Partnerships, to all our stall holders. I think they deserve a little round of applause. You have all been magnificent ambassadors for the arts and humanities today, so thank you very much. I'd also like to personally thank, on behalf of the school, Kevin Shakesheff for coming this morning, to Adrienne Scullion and to Rose Capdevila, again, for their support, their enthusiasm, their generosity and their advice. It means a great deal to us, so thank you. And I have a few more people to thank. Sarah Smith, for her brilliant management of our budget and always knowing the answer to absolutely everything. So thank you, Sarah. To our centre manager and staff, so Claire Wedley, centre assistants Sean Webb and Thais Concesal, to Alison Tucker, all of their hard work in keeping OpenARC running all through the year. And thankfully, the wheels have not fallen off. We're still motoring ahead. So thank you all very much for all the hard work, week in, week out. I'd like to thank my predecessor in the role, Gemma Allen, for her fantastic work in getting OpenARC started. We wouldn't be here otherwise. So thank you very much, Gemma. I'd like to thank our research managers and research support staff, Caitlin Adams, Suzanne Duncanson-Hunter, Charlotte Brunt, Wendy DeVille, and the rest of the FRO team. They have been supporting us wonderfully all through the year. Many of you who've worked with them will know how great they are. They always go the extra mile. They've been supporting funding workshops, helping you with your bidding, and managing your grants post-award. So a big thank you to them as well. I'd like to thank our head of school, Donna Loftus, for wonderful enthusiasm and leadership all through the year, and our OpenARC board members. Lots of positive energy. I always get really helpful advice and tips, and we share lots of ideas, and it's been an incredibly collegiate experience this year. And one person in particular to thank for an extra special round of thanks, and probably deserves a round of applause herself, Jo Durwood, for her brilliant organisational skills, which made this festival happen. She's been tireless, she's been brilliant, she's been on top of everything all the time. So I just want to thank all of you for making this festival happen. One final and very boring piece of housekeeping. Could I ask stallholders to tidy up their stalls and take all their things with them, because unfortunately the Hub Theatre is going to be needed for another event quite soon. But watch this space. We will be organising more events, and we're happy to have suggestions. Use the postcards, please. Use the OpenARC postcards. Put your feedback on the back of the postcards. Drop them into the box. We're very keen to have your ideas about what you want OpenARC to do. So having your enthusiasm and ideas and support and encouragement is immensely helpful to us from an OpenARC board perspective. So thank you again, and it's still a sunny day, so go out and enjoy the sun. Thank you.